Excuse me, I'm a licensed pharmacist.
I don't
work
care
here.
what you claim to be. Show me your identification and proof of citizenship.
Officer, I'm an American citizen. I was born in Houston, Texas. This is harassment.
Ma'am, I need to see your identification. Now. The voice carried that particular edge, half boredom, half threat. That comes from someone who said the same thing 1,000 times and never been told no. Dr. Amara Chen didn't look up from her phone. She stood outside the CVS on Lamar Boulevard, Austin, Texas, her white coat folded over one arm, prescription pad visible in her breast pocket. The September heat pressed down on the asphalt. She'd just finished a 12-hour shift. "I'm not required to provide identification," she said quietly. "I'm standing on a public sidewalk." The officer, barrel-chested, mirrored sunglasses, hand resting on his belt, stepped closer. His nameplate read Torrens. "I don't care what you think you're required to do. When I ask for ID, you show me ID. That's how this works. That's not how the Fourth Amendment works." Torrens's jaw tightened. "You one of those, huh? Think you know the law better than me? I know that absent reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity, this is an unlawful seizure under Terry versus Ohio." A pause. Long enough to hear the buzz of the streetlight overhead. "Keep talking," Torrens said, voice dropping. "Keep talking and see where it gets you." Dr. Chen finally looked up. Her expression hadn't changed. Calm. Clinical. The way you'd look at a specimen under glass. "I already know where this gets me, officer. The question is whether you do." It was 9:47 p.m. on September 14, 2022. The CVS pharmacy sat on the corner of Lamar and West 38th, a brightly lit box in an otherwise dimming neighborhood. The parking lot was mostly empty. A few sedans, a pickup truck with a dented bumper, someone's electric scooter chained to a bike rack. Officer Jacob Torrens, 34, had been with the Austin Police Department for 9 years. His record was clean enough. No excessive force complaints that stuck. No viral videos. He worked the evening shift in the Central West District, a zone that covered the university area, downtown spillover, and a stretch of commercial blocks where foot traffic thinned out after dark. Torrens wasn't a rookie. He knew the difference between a stop and a conversation. He knew Terry stops. He knew what reasonable suspicion meant on paper. But he also knew something else, something unwritten, something taught in the field rather than the academy. That most people, when pressed, comply. Most people don't want the hassle. Most people assume the cop knows better. And most people don't cite case law while standing on a sidewalk at night. The call had come in around 9:30, suspicious person, near the pharmacy. The details were thin. A woman, black, walking near parked cars. The caller didn't leave a name. Dispatch logged it as a welfare check, which meant Torrens could justify contact without much pushback. He'd done this 100 times. Roll up, make contact, get a name, run it, move on. Easy. Routine. The kind of interaction that evaporates from memory 5 minutes after it ends. Except Dr. Amara Chen wasn't playing the script. She stood near the curb, her car, a silver Tesla Model 3, parked legally in a marked space 10 feet away. She was 5 feet 6 inches thin, wearing scrubs under the white coat. Her hair was pulled back. No jewelry. No bag except a small crossbody purse. She looked tired in the way medical professionals look tired. Functional exhaustion still sharp. Torrens had expected compliance. Maybe annoyance. Maybe a sigh and an eye roll. What he got instead was silence. Precision. A refusal that didn't sound like defiance, it sounded like fact. That annoyed him more than shouting would have. Behind him, his dashcam rolled. The red light blinked steadily from the cruiser's hood. Texas law requires officers to activate body cameras during law enforcement activities. But Torrens hadn't turned his on yet. He would later claim he forgot. He would later claim the situation didn't escalate until it was too late to activate it. That would become a problem. The streetlight hummed. A car passed, bass thumping faintly from the stereo. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and stopped. The air smelled like hot pavement and fryer grease from a taco truck 2 blocks over. Torrens shifted his weight. His hand stayed near his belt, fingers drumming against the leather. He didn't like the way she was looking at him, or rather not looking at him, like he was an obstacle, a bureaucratic error she was calmly correcting. Last chance, he said. Dr. Amara Chen had been a licensed pharmacist for 11 years. She'd graduated from the University of Texas at Austin College of Pharmacy in 2011, passed her boards on the first attempt, and spent 2 years in clinical rotations at Del Seton Medical Center before moving into community pharmacy. She held certifications in immunization delivery, medication therapy management, and controlled substance compliance. She was bilingual, English and Mandarin, and frequently consulted on dosage adjustments for patients with renal impairment. She was not a criminal. She was not suspicious. She was standing outside the pharmacy where she worked 70 hours a week, waiting for her phone to finish uploading her shift notes to the hospital database so she could drive home, eat something that wasn't vending machine crackers, and sleep for 6 hours before her next shift started. But Officer Torrens didn't see a pharmacist. He didn't see someone who'd just spent 12 hours checking prescriptions, counseling patients, administering flu shots, and catching a potentially lethal drug interaction that would have sent someone into respiratory failure. He saw a black woman alone at night. That was enough. Dr. Chen had learned a long time ago that tone mattered more than content in moments like this. You don't escalate. You don't shout. You stay calm, you state facts, and you make it clear, politely, clinically, that you understand the law better than the person trying to intimidate you. Her father had been a civil rights attorney in Houston. Her mother had been a paralegal. Dinner table conversations in the Chen household didn't revolve around sports or gossip. They revolved around United States v. Brignoni Ponce, Florida v. Royer, and the fine legal line between a consensual encounter and an unlawful detention. She knew what Torrens was doing. She knew the game. She also knew he was already in violation. "Officer," she said, voice steady, "I'm going to be very clear. I have not committed a crime. I am not suspected of committing a crime. You have not articulated any reasonable suspicion that would justify this stop. Under the Fourth Amendment, you cannot compel me to identify myself without that suspicion. If you detain me without legal justification, you are acting under color of law in violation of my civil rights, and you are opening yourself and your department to liability under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. Torrens stared at her. His jaw worked like he was chewing something tough. You think throwing around legal terms makes you smart? I think knowing the law makes me informed. You people always have an excuse. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Unmistakable. You people. Dr. Chen didn't flinch. She'd heard it before. Different contexts, same meaning. The kind of phrase that gets memory hold later in official reports, or excused as poor phrasing by union reps. She made a mental note of the time. 9:51 p.m. The exact wording. The tone. She also noted the lack of a body camera light. Torrens's chest rig had one. A small black rectangle clipped near his badge. But the LED wasn't glowing. That meant it wasn't recording. Interesting. A second patrol car pulled up. Another officer stepped out, younger, thinner, name tag reading Williams. He walked over casually, thumbs hooked in his vest. What's going on? Williams asked. Failure to ID, Torrens said. She's refusing. I'm not refusing, Dr. Chen corrected. I'm declining to comply with an unlawful order. Williams glanced at her, then at Torrens. Something flickered across his face. Uncertainty, maybe, but he didn't say anything. Backup doesn't contradict backup. That's the code. The fluorescent lights from the CVS sign buzzed overhead. A shopping cart rattled across the parking lot, pushed by the wind. The smell of disinfectant and rubber and cooling asphalt mixed in the breeze. Turn around, Torrens said. On what grounds? Turn around or I'll make you turn around. Dr. Chen felt her pulse spike. Not panic, just adrenaline. But her voice stayed flat. Are you detaining me? Yeah, I am. Under what suspicion? Obstruction. The handcuffs came out. Cold steel. Heavier than people expect. Torrens pulled them from his belt with the practiced ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times, the metal clinking softly as the chain swung free. Dr. Chen didn't resist. She turned slowly, placing her hands behind her back. The cuffs ratcheted tight. Click, click, click. 3 notches too far. Her wrists pressed together, the metal digging into the narrow bones. She felt the circulation slow, a tingling numbness creeping into her fingertips. "That's too tight," she said. Torrens didn't adjust them. "You're under arrest for obstruction of governmental administration," he said. "You have the right to remain silent." "What governmental function am I obstructing? Anything you say can and will be used against you." "Officer, I'm asking you a direct question. What specific governmental function am I obstructing by standing on a public sidewalk?" Torrens finished the Miranda warning without answering. Williams stood a few feet back, hands on his hips, eyes scanning the parking lot like he was looking for something more interesting to do. A man in a hoodie walked out of the CVS, saw the scene, and immediately turned the other direction. Dr. Chen's white coat slipped off her arm and fell onto the asphalt. The embroidered name, Dr. A. Chen, Farm. Faced up under the streetlight. Neither officer picked it up. "I want your name and badge number," Dr. Chen said. "You'll get it at the station." Texas Government Code Section 614.022 requires you to provide that information upon request. Torrens's hand tightened on her shoulder. "You want to keep lecturing me about the law? Or you want to make this easier on yourself? I want you to follow policy." He walked her toward the cruiser. Her steps were short, the cuffs threw off her balance. The rough fabric of his glove pressed into her shoulder blade. She could smell his deodorant, something cheap and chemical, mixed with sweat and the faint metallic tang of the handcuffs. The back door of the patrol car opened. The interior smelled like disinfectant and old fast food. The seat was hard plastic, cracked along the seams, with a dark stain near the edge that could have been coffee or blood or both. A wire mesh partition separated the front from the back. No handles on the inside doors. No seatbelt she could reach. Torrens pushed her head down, not gently, and she folded into the seat. The door slammed. The sound echoed in the tight space, and suddenly the world narrowed to the size of a cage. The overhead light was out. The only illumination came from the streetlights outside, filtered through tinted windows. She could hear them talking outside. Muffled voices. Williams said something. Torrens laughed. "Dr. Chen took slow breaths. Her wrists throbbed. The cuffs bit deeper with every shift of weight. She tested them, not pulling, just assessing. No give. Standard APD issue Smith & Wesson Model 100s. Double lock mechanism. If Torrens had engaged the double lock, they wouldn't tighten further. If he hadn't, any movement would ratchet them tighter. He hadn't. She sat perfectly still. Through the window, she watched Torrens walk back toward her Tesla. He circled it once, peering into the windows with his flashlight. The beam swept across the interior, her gym bag in the back seat, a reusable coffee mug in the cup holder, a stack of pharmacy journals on the passenger side. Then he tried the door. Locked. He tried again. Then he knocked on the window like the car might answer. "Do you have consent to search my vehicle?" Dr. Chen called out, voice raised enough to carry. Torrens turned. Walked back to the cruiser. Opened the door. "What?" "I asked if you have consent to search my vehicle. I'm conducting an inventory search. Of a legally parked car? For what purpose?" "For my safety. I'm handcuffed in your patrol car. How does searching my locked vehicle enhance your safety?" Torrens's face darkened. The streetlight cast deep shadows under his eyes. His hand rested on the doorframe, knuckles white. "You don't get to ask the questions here. I get to invoke my Fourth Amendment rights. Your rights don't mean shit if you're under arrest. That's objectively incorrect." Williams appeared behind. Torrens, shifting uncomfortably. "Jake, maybe we should just—" "I've got this," Torrens snapped. He slammed the door again. Dr. Chen watched him walk to his own cruiser, pull out a Slim Jim, and return to her Tesla. He worked the tool into the doorframe, trying to pop the lock. It didn't work. Teslas don't have traditional lock mechanisms. After 30 seconds of fumbling, he gave up and kicked the front tire. Not hard, just enough to punctuate his frustration. A small crowd had started to gather near the CVS entrance. 3 people, then 5. Someone had a phone out, recording. Dr. Chen could see the small white glow of the screen, angled toward the scene. Torrens noticed too. "Hey!" he shouted. "Back up. This is a police investigation. We're on the sidewalk." One of them called back. A woman's voice. "Young. Steady. I don't care where you are. Back up." Nobody moved. Torrens walked toward them, hand on his belt again. That same aggressive posture he'd used with Dr. Chen. Williams followed reluctantly. Dr. Chen couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see the body language. Torrens leaning in, finger pointing, the crowd standing their ground. Then Williams looked directly at the phone camera, said something to Torrens, and they both retreated. Smart. Starting a secondary confrontation on video was a bad look. They returned to the cruiser. Torrens got in the driver's seat. Williams took passenger. The engine started. The radio crackled with dispatch chatter. Codes, street names, someone requesting a supervisor at a different location. "Where are we going?" Dr. Chen asked. No answer. "Officer Torrens. Where are we going?" "Downtown. Central booking." "For what charge?" "I already told you. Obstruction is a Class B misdemeanor in Texas. It requires proof that I intentionally prevented you from performing a lawful duty. Standing on a sidewalk and declining to provide ID doesn't meet that standard." Torrens adjusted the rearview mirror so he could see her face. "You think you're smart, don't you?" "I think I'm right. Lot of smart people end up in jail. And a lot of officers end up in depositions." The car pulled out of the parking lot. The CVS sign receded in the back window. The crowd with the phone stayed put, still recording. One of them waved. Dr. Chen filed that image away. Witnesses, documentation, timestamps. The drive downtown took 14 minutes. Torrens drove in silence. Williams stared out the window. The city slid by. Dark storefronts, late-night diners, a few pedestrians waiting at crosswalks. The radio hissed with static and voices. Someone called in a fender bender on I-35. The handcuffs dug deeper. Dr. Chen's fingers were numb now, fully tingling. She flexed them as much as she could, trying to keep circulation moving. Her shoulders ached from the unnatural position. At a red light, Torrens glanced back again. "Still think you know better than me?" Dr. Chen met his eyes in the mirror. "I don't think it, officer. I know it." The Travis County booking center smelled like floor wax and stale air and fear. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a flat, colorless glare. The front desk was bulletproof glass with a metal speaker grill. A bored clerk sat behind it, scrolling through something on a desktop monitor. Torrens walked Dr. Chen through the intake corridor. Her wrists were still cuffed. Her white coat was gone. Left in the parking lot, probably. Her scrubs were wrinkled. She'd been awake for 19 hours. "Name," the clerk said without looking up. "Dr. Amara J. Chen." The clerk paused, looked up. "Dr. Pharm.D. Licensed pharmacist." The clerk's eyes flicked to Torrens, then back to the screen. She typed slowly, pulling up records. Criminal history, warrants, priors, nothing. Occupation, clinical pharmacist, CVS Specialty Pharmacy on Lamar Boulevard. Address, Dr. Chen rattled it off. West Campus, a condo building near the university. Torrens shifted his weight behind her, impatient. "Any medical conditions we need to know about?" "No." "Medications?" "No." "Are you currently represented by legal counsel?" "I will be." The clerk printed an intake sheet and slid it through the slot. Under the glass. "Sign here." Dr. Chen couldn't. Her hands were still cuffed behind her back. "Officer, you need to uncuff her so she can sign," the clerk said, voice flat with routine exhaustion. Torrens stepped forward, keys jingling. He unlocked the cuffs. The pressure released all at once. A flood of pins and needles, sharp and almost painful. Dr. Chen brought her hands forward, flexing her fingers. Deep red lines circled both wrists. The skin was abraded where the metal had dug in. She signed the paper. Then she reached into her pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small leather wallet. She flipped it open and set it on the counter. Inside was her pharmacy license, her DEA registration number, her hospital ID badge from Del Seaton, and below that, laminated and official Texas Board of Pharmacy, inspector credentials. The clerk froze. Dr. Chen's voice didn't change. Still calm. Still clinical. I'm also a state-appointed pharmacy compliance inspector. I conduct unannounced audits of controlled substance handling, insurance fraud investigations, and review law enforcement access to prescription monitoring databases. Silence. I have direct oversight authority over any pharmacy-related investigation in Travis County, including those initiated by APD. I report to the Texas State Board of Pharmacy, which reports to the governor's office. The clerk's hand hovered over the keyboard. Dr. Chen turned to face Torrens. He'd gone very still. His face was blank. Not shocked, not panicked, just blank. The kind of blank that comes when your brain is moving too fast to let your face catch up. Officer Torrens, Dr. Chen continued. You've just unlawfully detained, handcuffed, and falsely arrested a state compliance officer who was standing outside her primary place of employment. You ignored repeated explanations of the law. You used racially charged language. You failed to activate your body camera. You attempted an illegal search of my vehicle. And you did all of this in front of multiple witnesses with recording devices. She paused. I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you understand what you've done? Torrens said nothing. Williams, standing near the door, looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. The call came at 11:43 p.m. Margaret Holder, senior litigation counsel for the city of Austin, was already asleep when her phone lit up. She answered on the third ring, groggy, annoyed. The voice on the other end belonged to APD's Internal Affairs night supervisor. We have a problem. By midnight, she was dressed and driving downtown. By 12:30, she was sitting in a conference room watching dashcam footage on a laptop, her coffee going cold in her hand. She watched Officer Torrens approach Dr. Chen, watched him demand ID without cause, watched him ignore her precise, textbook citations of case law, watched him use the phrase, you people, watched him cuff her too tight, ignore her complaints, attempt an illegal vehicle search and haul her to booking. Then she watched the intake video. The moment the credentials came out, the silence that followed. Margaret Holder set down her coffee. Oh, fuck, she said quietly. The problem wasn't just that Torrens had arrested someone. The problem was who he'd arrested, how he'd done it, and what had been recorded. Dr. Amara Chen wasn't just a pharmacist. She was a state compliance officer with direct oversight authority over law enforcement access to controlled substance databases. She had clearance. She had pull. She had a file full of APD requests for prescription records that she personally approved or denied. Arresting her was bad. Arresting her unlawfully on camera with witnesses, after she'd calmly explained the law multiple times, that was career-ending. Arresting her while using racially charged language and failing to activate a body camera? That was a federal civil rights case waiting to happen. Margaret opened her laptop and pulled up the relevant statutes. 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, Civil Action for Deprivation of Rights. Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code Section 101.021, Governmental Liability. She cross-referenced qualified immunity standards. She checked recent Fifth Circuit rulings on unlawful arrest. Every door was closed. Torrens had no defense. The stop lacked reasonable suspicion. The arrest lacked probable cause. The handcuffing was excessive. The search attempt was unconstitutional. The body camera malfunction would look like deliberate suppression of evidence. And the "you people" comment, captured on dashcam audio, was a prosecutor's dream and a jury's rage button. Worse, Dr. Chen had told him exactly what he was doing wrong in real time, and he'd done it anyway. That eliminated any argument of good faith or mistake of law. Margaret ran the numbers in her head. Compensatory damages for false arrest, unlawful detention, emotional distress. Punitive damages for willful misconduct and racial bias. Attorney's fees under Section 1983. She thought about similar cases. Floyd versus City of New York, $75 million. Evans versus City of Dallas, $8.4 million. Those involved patterns of abuse, but they also involved plaintiffs with less institutional power than Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen had credentials. She had a spotless record. She had witnesses, video, and a law degree's worth of constitutional knowledge. She was sympathetic. She was credible. She was exactly the kind of plaintiff who wins. Margaret picked up her phone and called the city's insurance carrier. The conversation lasted 4 minutes. The insurance rep's response was immediate. Settle. Settle now. Settle before discovery. Do not let this go to trial. They both knew why. Discovery meant depositions. Depositions meant Torrens on the stand, forced to explain his actions under oath. It meant pulling his personnel file, 9 years of incident reports, close calls, complaints that hadn't stuck but hadn't disappeared. It meant subpoenaing his training records, his body camera logs, his text messages. And it meant Dr. Chen's attorneys combing through every single APD interaction with her office. Every prescription request. Every database query. Looking for patterns. Looking for bias. Looking for a systemic story to tell a jury. The city had no appetite for that. By 6 a.m., the settlement framework was drafted. By 9 a.m., the city manager was briefed. By noon, Dr. Chen's attorney, a civil rights specialist out of Houston named David Ramirez, had received a preliminary offer, $15.9 million. It was the largest civil rights settlement in Austin's history. The announcement came 3 weeks later. The press release was carefully worded. No admission of wrongdoing, standard legal boilerplate, but everyone knew what it meant. The city had folded. Immediately, completely. Officer Jacob Torrens was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. 2 months later, he resigned. Williams received a written reprimand and additional training. The dashcam footage was never released publicly, buried under the settlement's confidentiality clause, but the damage was done. Internal APD memos quietly updated arrest protocols. Body camera policies were reinforced. Training modules on constitutional stops were expanded. The department's relationship with the Texas Board of Pharmacy became strained. Approval times for database requests tripled, and every officer in the Central West District knew exactly why. You can't unring that bell. You can't uncuff those wrists. You can't take back you people. The system had been caught. Not by activists. Not by protesters. Not by politicians. By someone who knew the law better than the people enforcing it. Here's what stays with you. Dr. Amara Chen was not an anomaly. She was not a fluke. She was exactly what she appeared to be. A professional doing her job standing on a public sidewalk. The only thing that made her case different was that she had the credentials to prove it mattered. But what about everyone else? What about the people who don't have state-appointed inspector badges? The ones who don't cite Terry versus Ohio from memory? The ones who comply because they're tired or scared or don't know they have the right to say no. They get arrested too. They get cuffed too tight. They hear you people too. The difference is their settlements don't make headlines. Their cases don't force policy changes. They disappear into the system, and the system keeps moving. Officer Torrens made a choice that night. He chose arrogance over law. He chose ego over evidence. He chose to ignore someone who was calmly, precisely explaining why he was wrong, because in his experience it didn't matter. People comply. People fold. People don't fight back. Except Dr. Chen did. And the machinery that usually grinds people down hit something it couldn't digest. The city's legal team saw the video and knew instantly. This was indefensible. The insurance carrier saw the plaintiff and knew. This was a jury's dream case. The department saw the fallout and knew. This was going to cost them more than money. It was going to cost them credibility. $15.9 million is not justice. It's a number. It's a line item in a budget, a taxpayer burden, a settlement that lets the system avoid accountability by writing a check. Torrens didn't go to jail. He didn't lose his pension. He resigned and moved on, probably to another department in another county, where his record would be scrubbed and his mistakes would be someone else's problem. But here's the thing, Dr. Chen knew that would happen. She knew the system protects itself. She knew that even with video, even with witnesses, even with credentials, the most she'd get was money and a quiet policy change buried in a memo. And she took it anyway, because documentation matters, because knowing your rights matters, because forcing the system to acknowledge it was wrong, even quietly, even privately, matters. The question isn't whether one person can change everything. The question is, what happens when more people know what she knew? When more people refuse to comply with unlawful orders? When more people record? When more people cite the law back to those who claim to enforce it? When more people make the system work for what it costs? The machinery doesn't break easily, but it can be jammed. Dr. Chen jammed it. If you found this story valuable, consider subscribing. These stories don't tell themselves, but maybe they should.